Legend has it that a witch is buried in this abandoned graveyard. However, the truth is far more complex. Somewhere in this overgrown yet mysterious place is the grave of a lady called Susan Wawan. Over the decades, Susan has repeatedly been called a witch, and although history hides most of her existence, there are snippets of evidence to show why she may have been misjudged and cruelly labelled in this way. We are at St Andrew's Chapel, the location of St Andrew's Chapel near Bewdley. So legend has it that there was a witch buried here. Imagine if you had a medical condition that caused disfigurement to your head. Now imagine that that disfigurement resembled horns. Susan Wawan had horns, and thus some people were scared of this and called her a witch. Some people still do, so let's correct this. So this is an abandoned graveyard. The chapel's no longer here, but there is a little side building that's got ruins. This is meant to be very haunted. Hundreds of years ago, when medical understanding was in its infancy, some people with growths like Susan's may have been seen to be different, evil and outcasts. These people may have been called witches. Even a simple mole, wart or growth could have been all that was needed to gain this horrid label. These so-called witches were not trusted and people were afraid of them. In some cases, their lives were even cut short by their own communities. So it is likely that Susan Wawan just had a medical condition rather than being evil or a witch. If this is the case, then her poor soul would have suffered with this unfair and cruel label. Upon researching Susan, I came across information in an old letter from a Richard Beard, dated 1728. It was sent to the Royal Society and showed her life from a medical perspective. I have tried my best to read the old-fashioned joined-up handwriting to get the essence of what was said here. The letter is quite detailed, and if you're interested, I will pop a link in the description so that you can read it for yourself. From what I gather, she was known then as Susanna Wawan, died aged 60, probably around the year 1713, don't quote me there. She suffered for many years, including some of those years being bedridden. She had developed a tumour and had pains in her head. She later sprouted a horn-type growth of about 1 to 2 inches, and then possibly another growth later. These growths formed into hollow conical shapes that were shed every now and then. The letter is quite sympathetic to Susan's suffering and has much more detail than I will include here. She hardly sounds like a witch to me. In today's society, growths like these on humans are called cutaneous horns. They can be small like this cute goat, or grow big and curly like this one. Susan's final resting place is not known. However, this graveyard contains a mort cage. Okay, so here, this is much smaller than I was expecting. Is there another one here? Here we have a mortis safe. So this is to stop grave robbers from robbing the graves, obviously. And this is said to be a grave of a child. There's no headstone, but there is this beautiful yew tree. I've never seen a mortis cage before. I don't think it would stop people that really wanted to rob a grave there. Many people believe this is where Susan is buried, but others think that the cage is far too small and that it's actually of a child. Going back to the letter from Mr. Beard, he stated that Susan had shrunk to the size of a child during the end of her illness. Joining that with the evidence that people were generally much shorter back then gives plausibility to the mort cage being hers. So if anyone wants to show themselves, stand behind me now. I wish you the best. Another example of a mort cage in the UK is that of a young girl called Sarah Wrench. This grave is located in East Mersey. Sarah's grave is remarkably similar to that of the unknown grave here. Both cages have near identical structures to them. However, unlike this unknown grave, Sarah's has a metal nameplate wrapped around the cage. It is likely that the mystery one here would have also had something like this, and it would explain the lack of headstone. This plate may have fallen off, been stolen, or just rusted away. Like Susan, Sarah Wrench was also unfairly called a witch. It is rumoured that she either was a witch, that she ended her own earthbound days, or that she had a child out of wedlock. This could account for the mort cage, as people back then would have been fearful of souls like that hanging around. Since she was buried after it all became legal to use cadavers for medical science, the numbers of grave robbers would have reduced, rendering the cages unnecessary. It could be that people were still afraid of those souls reappearing, or other unknown reasons. We will probably never know for sure. Sarah Wrench's grave could give merit to the location of Susan Warren's burial site, since both graves look so similar, and they've both been called a witch. Now this, I always find a little creepy. Wow.
Where's the chapel gone?
The chapel's gone. Many people mistake these ruins for the old church, and that seems fitting, but that is not the case. Here instead stands the remains of the old parish house. Prior to the church's demolition, this house would have once seen the church out of its windows. Upon researching the area after I visited it, I found that the parish house was sold recently by auction, just after we went.
Sad really, because it's got so much history, which means it's probably going to be completely demolished.
Earlier, I briefly got my EMF meter out, and this would become more important at this location. Let's go back a bit. Okay, if there's anybody here with us that would like to say anything, say hi. I wish you no harm at all. If you've got anything to say, there's a device on that stone that's got a green light on it currently. And if you make that light up to red just by going near it, touching it, then we know you're here. So, William. Wow, eldest son of John Martin of the island of Jamaica. I've been to Jamaica. Town Clerk of Beardley and 52 years Clerk of the Peace for the County of Worcester and Elizabeth. I didn't get any readings here, but I think the box was noticed, and I'll come to that in a bit. Saw a man in the distance, I'm assuming he's real. So this is the ruins of the old parish house, which is the only building that still stands today here. The church was originally built in 1789, however that probably wasn't the original church here. So there would have been another church. This abandoned graveyard and ruins used to be in Shropshire, but it's now classed as Worcestershire. St Andrew's Church was built in 1789 upon the site of an older church, St Lawrence's, and maybe one before that. St Andrew's Church here is not to be confused with the other St Andrew's Church nearby. This St Andrew's was demolished in 1956 due to lack of use. It's not surprising with its location. The font inside was much older, around 1695, and can still be visited in St Anne's Church in Bewdley, along with other items that were moved from the demolished church. St Andrew's Chapel would have once stood right here next to the parish house, and to the right I can see a gravestone in a cross shape that matches one that I've seen on an old postcard. that stood right outside the front of the church. I am unsure whether any of these stones, though, would have been relocated when the church was demolished. However, it seems to roughly fit the location.
Sarah Brown and John Brown, and I apologise if I can't read your name out. I can't see all the stones. Is this a nice place to be, or are you no longer around? Hopefully you've just gone on to better things. Benjamin, is that Owens? Oh look, the yew tree. Robert Newman. Of Worcestershire, who died in Bewdley, aged 71, in 1805, I think. This tree, it's massive. It's making me feel small. It's a shame people don't take the litter with them, isn't it?
There are many gravestones here that show that partners and family members were often buried together in one plot.
Oh, nearly tripped. So this is a 1935.
1824 on this side.
Unless I'm reading it incorrectly. I think this was 19 something. It's the grave of Lucy, beloved wife of William Wall. Good afternoon, Anne Tolley. I don't know if this is Marisha, I'm not sure. Her aunt, is that Sarah Piper? 1913. And something, I think maybe Mary Owens, 1942. I kind of like the fact that the church is not here anymore, because quite often people will be drawn to going to see churches, won't they? Wow. These stones are amazing. The size of them. I'm going to say goodbye now. If anyone wants to say goodbye, can you flash the light on here? Just here, touch this. Is there anyone that wants to say hello instead? Just flash the light.
I've always called this an EMF reader, but the spirits seem to call it a black box. With my headphones, I think I can hear some other parts to this conversation. It sounds like one's wishing the other good luck to go and interact with the black box, which I'm assuming is the EMF meter.
It's falling down. Nature's retaking it. And lots of graffiti.
When I listened to this back in editing, there was a clear voice pointing out the butterfly behind the ivy on the right-hand side of the brickwork.
It's falling down. Nature's retaking it. It's falling down. Nature's retaking it. So there's really old gravestones here. This path seems to be made up of some old gravestones again. You can see the old stones there. So when I went to Oddingly, it felt so spooky and eerie, but this doesn't. Not in the same way. I'm sure if you were alone at night it might feel a bit different. So some people have complained that this graveyard is overgrown and nature's kind of taken over, but do you know what? I think I'd prefer to be somewhere that's got a bit of overgrown nature than somewhere clinical.
Henry Wyatt, 1864, and Caroline, his wife, 1869.
Eliza. So these two stones stick out to me because Eliza's stone and the wall's stones, they're quite clear of debris, aren't they? They've been cleared.
Feeling spooky. Crow of the day.
Two-winged plane. Two-winged, I mean four-winged. Be funny if it didn't have two wings.